10 and 20 million immigrants.
Can you
look
shut
at the
up?
housing stock of working Americans, and can you maintain some level of dignity?
Gentleman's time has expired.
I believe the ranking member does not understand the definition of generalized inflation versus one-time price increases. I would also note that housing, especially for working Americans, a Wharton study has shown that the mass unfettered immigration, adding 10 to 20 million new people demanding housing, Congresswoman, is what caused a great deal of housing inflation for working Americans. So you and the Biden administration should be ashamed.
Which is also why we are seeing rents. There was just a recent media story on this. Rents are going down partially because of that enforcement. So Mr. Secretary.
Yes, supply and demand continues to work.
So today, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent testified in front of Congress, and you know exactly what that means. It's a prime opportunity for Democrats to start screaming and putting on a giant performance. And they certainly did not disappoint. We have as one example, Representative Maxine pushing 90 years old, deciding to have multiple senile meltdowns on national TV, and will certainly react to a lot of this comical ridiculousness. But I do also want to highlight on a deeper level how this hearing just demonstrates how out of touch Democrats actually are with the economy, and why so many of their economic arguments are just disconnected from reality. Because, for example, if you listen to Hakeem Jeffries talk about the Trump economy on TV, he'll go on this long list about how inflation is skyrocketing, prices are climbing high, and this is all a result of the Trump tariffs. But whether it's looking at the data or even testifying from my own personal experience, I just have to ask the question to these people, where and how is that happening, right? Like, I understand that people live in different parts of the country and buy different consumer goods on a daily basis. So my experience is not universal, and I encourage everyone to share how you have felt about prices in the past couple of months. But again, just speaking from my personal experience, I will say what I've noticed is that with the exception of beef at the grocery store, almost every single consumer product that I regularly buy or look at has gone down in recent months, whether it's most things at the grocery store. Gas certainly now is basically never above $3 a gallon where I live. Sometimes I even eyeball on Google the prices of rents, mortgages, and cars in my local area, and I see those have actually gone down a little bit as well. Even the wintertime sales this year at the mall seem to be incredible. It's like at discount rates I haven't seen since I was a kid. So again, I understand that's not everyone's experience. Feel free to share your own. But when I look at the economy and combine that with the fact that I'm not being delusional, our inflation data is also showing that inflation has dramatically cooled. Where is this inflation, Trump tariff inflation that Democrats are speaking about? You tell me. Maybe someone has seen it. I actually can't find it from an objective standpoint of just what I've noticed and looking at the data. And even as it pertains to the feeling I'm sure many had in 2025 that the economy was a little bit stagnant. You know, it is true. The jobs market was taking some hits. There were layoffs. You kind of maybe noticed all around you that retail spaces, restaurants in a lot of cases were empty for parts of the year. But I've also likewise noticed that's starting to pick back up again, right? It feels like there's a lot more motion as of late in the economy, and that's backed up by the stats of GDP and economic growth. So I don't think I'm being delusional here. I actually think it's Democrats that are being delusional. But nonetheless, let's talk about this here today, right? As you'll see, Democrats try to confront the administration saying, look at the inflation your tariffs have caused. And then the data looks there and says, what inflation? What are you talking about? The tariffs? There's no. So anyways, let's get into all of it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all the latest news and coverage. So guys, just hit that red button. And that said, just to give you an idea, obviously, of a lot of the antics that took place today in this hearing with congressional Democrats, here's a couple of examples. And it goes as you would expect.
About the housing
woman
stock.
from California.
10 and 20 million immigrants.
Can you
look
shut
at the
up?
housing stock of working Americans, and can you maintain some level of dignity?
Gentleman's time has expired.
No, my time has not expired.
Your time has expired.
The gentleman.
The gentleman took up my time. I think you should recognize that, Mr. Chair.
The gentlewoman's
He took
time
up
has
my
expired. The gentlewoman's time has
Well,
expired.
if you
Mr. Chair,
wanna-
parliamentary
If you
inquiry.
wanna protect him,
The chair
Mr.
recognizes the vice chairman of the
Mr.
committee,
Chair.
Mr.
If you
Heisinger.
want to
Parliamentary inquiry.
go right ahead, but I would not expect you to do that.
This question and a serious issue for the financial services industry, especially as the Secretary of the Treasury. That's an important. No, this is my time. I haven't asked you any more questions. I haven't asked you any more questions,
It's the
sir.
gentleman from Massachusetts.
I'm trying to get to
time.
my next question.
Could you speak a little louder? I can't hear you.
Yeah, okay. I might.
Mr. Secretary, let Mr. Lynch proceed with his time. Put 4 seconds back on the clock, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appropriated funds, Treasury will be.
Is this
able
going to be a yes or no?
outstanding program awards.
Mr. Secretary.
expeditiously
No.
as possible.
I'm going to abide by the chairman's rules, but I have some rules. You can say yes or no, and then if you say yes, you may continue to give that support. If it's a no, then you tell me why not. And now we need to be clear. Yes, let's start with the yes or no. I'm trying to be respectful. But you're not going to do what you want to do on my time. Yes or no, or you can say I'm not going to answer it. Now move on.
Number 3.
Okay, so let the record show that he refuses to answer a question. No, we're not going to do that with me. We are not going to do that with me.
Ask it.
It's the gentlewoman's time from Ohio.
Now, you opted for number 3, so you get to hear my wrath that you refuse to answer a question under your authority and what this administration, and yet you've talked about the value of housing and you're not releasing the funds. And I want the record to be clear on that. So let me move on.
All you have to ask is yes or no.
No, Congressman.
All you have to ask
the
is yes or no.
OCC is an independent entity, and I would know, Congressman.
so that- I take that as a no.
You traveled to Venezuela to lobby
I take that as a no.
On behalf of
I
your
take that
donors,
as a
on
no.
behalf of your
You
donors.
do not want to answer that
was
question.
sentenced to 110
I take that as a no.
For a $7 billion.
Gentleman's time
I'm asking you to do your responsibility as Secretary of the Treasury.
Into a Venezuelan.
You do not.
Mr. Makes,
Will you?
time has expired.
You cannot erase what you did in
He's the one that
2006.
went past your time, Mr. Chairman.
No, and
He did not answer my question, and he wouldn't pass the
Mr.
time.
Makes. He had 6 seconds left to try to answer your question, and the
It was
time
a yes or
expired.
no. It was a yes or no answer. I asked him, will he? No, it was
Gentlemen,
yes
the
or
chair
no.
recognizes
OCC
the
is an
gentleman.
independent
Stop
Mr.
covering
Bessent.
for the president.
Yeah, well.
Stop
Mr.
being his flunky.
And
Gentlemen.
He's talking to me. I'm responding
your
back to him.
2006 trip to Venezuela.
Neither
Why
one.
don't
Stop
why don't you
covering
tell
for the
Secretary
president. Don't be a flunky. Work for the American
Secretary,
people.
Mr. Makes,
trip to
Mr.
Venezuela?
Makes.
Work for the American people.
And maybe
Don't
you're
be
going-
a
maybe you're
cover-up
going to
for a mob.
Maybe you're going to
As
see your
long as
friend
he talked,
Nicholas
you talk.
Maduro
I will.
in
Gentleman
Brooklyn
is not
prison.
recognized. Mr. Bessent, please. I recognize the gentleman from Texas.
Yeah, so as usual, this is how these hearings go. Democrats ask a bunch of stupid gotcha questions, and then as soon as anyone tries to answer it, they just start screaming over you. And in a very theatrical way as well, right? They seem to think they're these heroic characters from a movie or some type of civil rights leader, but in reality, they're just making a bunch of fools out of themselves and looking like uncontrollable lunatics to the entire country. But that's Democrats for you. What else do we expect? That said, I do want to show you some of the moments of exchange between Scott Bessent and Democrats where any intelligible words are actually spoken, because again, we're watching the prime examples of how their economic arguments are just out of touch with reality. As one, let's bring you this exchange between Maxine Waters herself and Scott Bessent, where Maxine Waters tries to argue that, well, lumber and housing materials are up as a result of tariffs. And by the way, this was an argument we heard many times as it pertained particularly to the Trump tariffs on Canada. Oh, Trump says he wants to bring down housing costs, but if you tariff lumber, if you tariff manufacturing, construction goods, then you're going to see an increase in those prices. Now, you can say that. It's a great talking point, but it completely ignores the fact here, as Scott Bessent points out, actually, the price of lumber is not up. It's not in this skyrocketing inflation state as you claim. It's actually, the price is at a 5-year low. Take a listen.
levied tariffs on housing production goods like lumber and steel, as well as appliances. These tariffs will result in
lumber is
reclaiming my time. You don't get to talk.
Lumber is at a 5-year low, Congresswoman.
Reclaiming my time.
Let's just have the facts.
Reclaiming my time. Thank you.
See exactly what I'm talking about? It's just completely disconnected from reality. She can get there with her New York Times article and say, you put tariffs on lumber, steel, and housing materials, and my thing here says it's going to raise inflation. Oh, wait a minute, but that's not what actually happened in the economy, right? No, I'm reclaiming my time. Tariffs are inflationary. Okay, then where's the inflation? It's there because I said so. Prices are climbing. Where are the prices climbing? Just trust me, right? And I suppose the strategy that Democrats maybe are trying to employ is that, well, as it pertains, for example, to economic recovery, these things always happen slower than people want because that's just sort of how the economy works. It always moves slower than people would like. And sure, wherever you are in life, there's probably always sort of this foreboding feeling that, oh, things are too expensive, prices are still too high. I get it, and they're not coming down to 2019 levels, although because of all the money we printed, that level of deflation would actually be more destructive than it would be constructive. But, okay, fine. I get that. I understand, right? Just because the inflation numbers have cooled or the jobs market or the economic growth is getting better doesn't mean that people are not still suffering. I understand all of that, but you cannot just get in front of the world and be like, inflation is going up because of the tariffs, if the evidence actually suggests the contrary. And it's not just, for instance, about the prices of lumber. Take a look at this exchange between Waters and Bessent on the overall question of tariffs themselves.
To investors raising concerns about the impact of tariffs, writing that, quote, tariffs are inflationary. Did you say that at that time, yes or no?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a New York Times article that, agrees that you said
New York
that.
Times.
Then last summer, when you testified before a Senate committee, you said, and I quote, there is no inflation. Tariffs are not being passed on to consumers. You were quite definitive and even claimed that critics had, quote, tariff derangement syndrome. Well, those comments are at odds with the statement you made to investors that tariffs are inflationary. Again, I want to be clear, so just let me ask you, are tariffs inflationary, yes or no?
According to the San Francisco Federal Reserve, with 150 years of data,
yes or no?
Tariffs do not cause inflation. San Francisco Federal Reserve.
Well, last November, as the Trump administration finally began to realize that affordability issues in America are not a hoax, you told Fox News that the government was going to reduce tariffs on goods like coffee and bananas, and that doing so would, quote, bring the prices down very quickly. Mr. Secretary, why was that announcement even necessary? If tariffs aren't inflationary, and as you and the president like to say, are paid for by foreign countries?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that tariffs actually are not inflationary. And as he points out, the history of 150 years of economic data tells us that. Now, tariffs, if applied incorrectly, can decrease output, which is a problem for the economy, and that part is true. But this whole line that, oh, you're going to see catastrophic inflation, well, let's actually just look at the real world then. Where was the catastrophic inflation as a result of Liberation Day and all of the tariffs and trade negotiations that took place in the year 2025? Democrats might claim it was happening, but it really wasn't, right? The data doesn't show that. The ordinary experiences of everyday Americans don't show that. They may have said prices didn't come down as fast as we would have liked, or they're still too high. But in terms of new inflation, it was virtually non-existent, right? It was extremely low. Secondly, as it pertains, by the way, to the overall state of the economy, because the argument I for a long time made was that 2025, no matter who won the presidency, but even though Trump won, was going to be a slow economic year because it's going to be a recovery year. Essentially, the bubble had burst from the Biden COVID stimulus era. You could see the signs of that even before the election, right? Things are starting to slow down. So yeah, it was just stagnant. There was this kind of feeling of a lack of growth. And, we did have some struggling GDP numbers. But as I said, I think as a result of Big Beautiful Bill, all of Trump's economic policies, the hope is that in 2026 and going forward, things are going to start to pick up. And hopefully by the 2028 election, our U.S. economy is in a good state. Well, as Scott Bessent pointed out to people, even with the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, we're still seeing the signs ever since Big Beautiful Bill passed. Very notable, by the way, right? That economic growth is starting to accelerate like this. Right now, we're dealing with about 4% or so quarterly GDP growth. That's a very good number. And it once again seems to undercut a lot of these Democrat arguments about some type of economic catastrophe that we're all living through, because all the signs seem to show the opposite. Sure, it's a recovery. Sure, it takes time to clean up the Joe Biden mess, but the signs are certainly there that that's happening. Take a listen.
The U.S. will have reported likely, despite the government shutdown, despite the longest government shutdown in history, 4.1% growth for the past 3 quarters. And so we have been successful at that. Europe last week celebrated 0.3% growth. So it's no comparison. Right. And I think we are beginning to accelerate. And importantly, everything we are doing is to fix this terrible Biden inflation from the past 4 years, 21.5%, much more for working families. And we are bringing that down.
And I think the comparison to Europe is very important there too. Because sure, Joe Biden could have tried to make the argument that, well, every economy in the world is dealing with COVID inflation, but as it pertains to this post-COVID inflation boom, no, that is something actually that's very unique to the United States. Keep in mind as well, the economy of the European Union is something that Democrats often cite as their model, right? It's their dream of everything they want. Mass liberal economics. We have high taxation, lots of public spending, eco-regulations, climate change policies all across the board, stringent regulations on business to supposedly stop corporate greed, all these things. It's a liberal utopia. There's a reason they were always celebrating, and there's a reason Bernie Sanders is always saying, Sweden, Scandinavia, all those things. Okay, well, here's the side-by-side. Ever since Trump started taking his approach, and Ursula and the whole EU are doing theirs, what's happening in Europe? Total economic stagnation because they're overtaxed. You can't open a business or do anything. You have so much capital fleeing, and even the new free trade agreements they're trying to sign with China, it turns out, are not working. But whose economy is starting to see the signs of boom? The United States of America, which, by the way, when you compare the growth numbers or you compare the inflation numbers between their continent and ours, the contrast there is absolutely true. It's absolutely real. And to me, it is proof that the Trump economic approach over the long term, again, these things take time, right? I'm not saying that's a cope. No, we're seeing the progress, but hey, if you don't feel it yet, give it a little more time, because usually, the economic numbers are sort of a leading indicator to maybe how your personal financial situation starts to feel in a couple of months if you're not seeing that yet. But again, Democrats, what are we talking about here? Where's the economic implosion? You promised recession, no recession. You promised catastrophic inflation. Well, there's been little to no inflation, actually, as a matter of fact, as compared to historical standards. I'd even point out, right, if they're going to claim that tariffs are the things raising the inflation number or whatever, even as pertains to the inflation data we do have, that first and foremost, the inflation of core goods has actually, as of late, been at its lowest level since 2021, as a matter of fact, right? In several years, goods have never had this low a rate of inflation, which AKA means what? Physical things that you go buy, things that are actually affected by tariffs. Do you know where actually, as a matter of fact, the majority of new inflation at all in the U.S. economy is coming from? Services, not goods. So if it was tariffs, why aren't consumer goods seeing rapid rates of inflation? And as a matter of fact, specifically, you know what service is causing the most inflation in our economy? Healthcare, which is also AKA what? Obamacare, right? So ironically, the only really inflationary thing in our economy that keeps causing us a headache is the one aspect of the American economy that is entirely written and controlled by a liberal Democrat policy. And I guess that tells you everything you need to know, right? Because the tariffs aren't raising the prices of goods, but we can certainly say Obamacare is raising the price of healthcare, which does show up in the services part of our inflation reports. So there you go, right? So there you go, Democrats. You want to actually finally bring all inflations down to their lows in the past several years, then repeal Obamacare. What else can I say? But besides that, Besides the healthcare issue, seems to be strong signs to me that the economy is trending in the right direction. Will it necessarily be in a perfect place by the midterms? We'll find out, but I think by 2028 especially, that's an optimistic sign for me that I'm looking at thus far. But that said, let me know your thoughts though, guys, in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.